didn't we all have dreams back then? We wanted to be astronauts. We wanted to be architects. I wanted to be an architect back then. But then came life. Then came the progression of growing up and whatever stood in our ways. And whatever framing we got to see, values we got to chase, environments we had to live through. And all of a sudden, we end up in some place that doesn't feel like a dream and doesn't feel like we could ever chase the dream, because now it got way too unrealistic. We gotta get money in, we gotta sustain our lives, we have the need to get free time. All of a sudden you start to work for your weekend. And I was wondering at some point throughout my time what it all is about if we do this. And you hear a lot of people talk about that. And it's good, because you shall never stop questioning those terms. But what I keep missing is, how do we actually chase those dreams? Why do we need to let them down? Okay, my terms, I would let down getting an architect. I'm done with that dream. But I worked on myself to find out what my dream might be. And now I'm chasing that dream. And still, something very interesting happens. I keep making myself smaller whenever I chase the dream to the fullest. And what I mean by that is, it's not that I keep looking at this vast vision. And maybe you can think about a few successful people that just kept on thinking about or working toward that vision they had, even though it seemed very unrealistic. They just kept chasing it, and eventually it just happened. But myself, in comparison, was perceiving something fairly strange in this regard. I kept the dreams close because I knew I can only be fulfilled if I go about the dream. But on the other hand, I wasn't very sure about how to chase the dream and kept reducing its scope so it can fit into a life that potentially would make it more realistic to approach this goal and the dream. So what was I missing then? Or what started from there on? Something very interesting happened. Because all of a sudden, I wasn't working in terms of getting on track to have a foreseeable future living the dream, but rather work toward a minimized version of the dream, just to be sure I keep following it and I do not end up unfulfilled like years before, where I was working in a normal job. And I, to this day, found myself in a very spot where I keep building towards something that is just half of the bill, that is just a tiny portion of what would actually fuel the dream. And now you could say, okay, but doesn't this make sense? You start small and eventually you go closer toward a dream. Sure. And you could also tell this to astronaut. The astronaut might start liking the planes he grabs. Tiny miniature planes. He loves to fly whenever he goes onto a family trip. And the astronaut then gets into flight school. And this is a a gradual path he has to take, and eventually he'll be able to get into the classes where he could potentially get an astronaut. This is somewhat gradual, but if you break this down to reality, it mostly isn't so easy. It rather is a bumpy road, and every day you keep showing up, working towards your dream, living towards the future. You keep seeing in your head there's some obstacle hindering you from actually getting toward that dream, which in turn makes the dream a light version. And maybe you end up as a flight instructor, or maybe you end up as someone who flies little sailplanes that just cruise through some valleys. But you're not getting the astronaut like you were always seeking to get. And this is fine if you are able to enjoy this journey, and if you're able to enjoy this path you're on. And if everyone would chase such big and unrealistic delusional dreams, others would call it, we would be flooded by people chasing their dreams. And society wouldn't like that, because who would be there to actually follow all the other necessary jobs? And I'm so grateful for anyone who pursues jobs that keep our infrastructure running and keep ourselves healthy and look after each other, doing necessary things we are not even actively recognizing in our day-to-day lives. But I'm a dream chaser, and I got dreams that are very vast, and I'm super interested in topics that exceed my knowledge. And I can only chase those dreams in it if I understand where is the crux, where is the biggest leverage to be made, so I can get towards the dream. Like him or not, but if you think about a person like Elon Musk, who had this dream and had found a way to actually go and take the very moonshot path of getting towards that dream. Moonshot path took him over 25 years now with SpaceX, but if you're someone that has this vast vision like him, getting our species to be multiplanetary, this is like something people will call you delusional for all your life, unless you prove them different. And for sure, in between, there are many probabilities that have to work for your favor, and you have to be super resilient to keep that dream sparked up, because, as I mentioned before, it's so easy that we get caught up in life and have our dreams sort of evaporate out of nothing just because something and some impact in our lives made us insecure, made us forget about the dream. So each and every day is our quest to keep the spark, this tiny little glow that's still there. Maybe you carry it for 20 years with you and you couldn't figure out how to chase that dream. And the spark is still there. You keep thinking about something like that. For a long time, you set it aside. And you don't find yourself in the spot where you can live the dream now. I want to be sure you get at it. What are you doing to do so? What is the path to get yourself up and over there? And as I said, I even found myself in this very spot. Even today, because I realized I was building something that isn't actually pointed at the vast scope of the technical problem I keep facing if I try to make this work. And in my terms is, I want to make this personal intelligence that understands you very deeply and isn't as generic as any other model you keep chatting with on ChatGPT or Claude or any other provider of your choice, but rather something that actually sees what you're trying to get at. And with this example, you see the technology is only getting better, and it's getting better anyway. Just like there's some person out there going to the moon and beyond anyway. Maybe you will live through it. Maybe your grandchildren will live on Mars. And maybe you aren't even the one having a dream like that. But if you are someone having such a dream to get the species to other planets, or be an astronaut yourself, or have this very delusional goal, then you should be the one who chase it. Because how would you feel when you look back at those days in 20 years, in 30 years, and maybe if you're old and you see a major success in this very field you kept being sparked up so much, and eventually you just see someone else having the success with it. What would you do? How would you feel? I keep imagining myself looking back to those years where I had this immense spark to make something technologically able to resemble one's own life, to understand one's own values, that I would feel so sorry for myself if I wouldn't chase that dream and make it possible for the world. Because I do not know whether the person who actually makes such major success, which by the way, the person is actually coming, as just mentioned, and how would I know that this very person or this institution, this company, leads the same values as myself? If I'm not doing it on my own and stay here grounded, knowing my values, knowing my spark, know what I would want to do for humanity, and how I'm not carrying profit-oriented directions, but rather this human potential we all have within us as something that paves my way, then if I don't know the answer for that, because I don't know the person yet who is to build the thing I keep dreaming about, I can't be sure that it's gonna be a good future for all of us. And I don't want to look back towards the future we had back when we were young, like now, and tell myself that I had all this energy, that I had all this spark in myself, but I didn't go for it because there was something in my way that kept hindering me from being brave enough and bold enough and sitting down thinking very long about a very hard problem and not rushing on it, not trying to make this overnight success, but actually stopping and actually just letting it all sink in, to let the questions and answers come at me without chasing them. That's what I'm doing. And that's what I'll keep doing all this life. And that's why I'm here now telling you, because I want to see you go after your spark as well. And I want to remind myself that one day I know that on this very day of myself going up this mountain, sweating my ass off, holding my phone in my hand and telling you and myself those words, that you shall never keep your dream loose, even if it's delusional, even if it seems like you could never do it, you shall still go on. This is not some generic motivational speak. It's rather something that we can all make it happen. And there's many things between those lines that I'm not having the answer for you right now. And we'll go in depth on that very soon. But there's a way. If it's really for you, if it's intrinsically motivated dream, if it's an intrinsically motivated outlook on life you keep seeing, you just won't stop going after it. And maybe along the way you aren't that close to the goal, to the dream. Maybe you have to work through some business, through some epoch of your life that doesn't seem connected to the dream at all. But still, if you look at the grand scope of it, it has its integrity in the path you're choosing, because it might be something that is going to sustain you and isn't necessarily the way you kept in your mind. All of a sudden you'll be able to make massive amounts of money and sustain your life by living your dream. No, but rather something that seems super off but is close to the topic, because it maybe is an apprenticeship in some area that is close to the dream life you have in your mind, to the dream job, to the dream you keep holding. And if you know the outcome of what you want to see, and each and every day you come back to that vision and you keep asking yourself whether the thing you are producing on this very day is something that in the grander scope of things is actually paying into the goal, the dream, because you know that in this game theory, in this strategy you kept choosing, this is some move you made on that board that keeps you closer to the dream rather than something else. You shall go those ways. You shall choose those moves. And if they're risky, great. You'll have even more room to think about the choice and the move. And you can calculate what the outcome of the next 5 moves is going to be, because you maybe need to calculate, because otherwise you won't be able to pay your rent. Even at this point, don't let your dream down and still go on and still think about the next 5 moves to make. I can tell you, you're very, very close to dream. And at some point, you'll just be up there and there's no clouds. You'll see far out into the landscape. And you know that this is your way, and you could choose the foreseeable, easy one the safe one, the broad one, or you could choose the narrow one, the risky one, the one where you could break your ankle, falling to the ground, or won't be able to sustain your life. But only if I go here, I can know for sure that I won't break my ankle. And you know what's up there? A dream. And I can feel it on my back. I can feel the goosebumps. I can feel life. Because I know what I'm doing it all for. Don't let your dreams down. I'll see you up there. Still some time, but I'll see you up there.